Mom's baked chicken. Have some of this easy roasted chicken on hand. It tastes both hot and cold, and it can be used just like a rotisserie chicken or packed in a lunchbox. A packed lunch that includes cold baked chicken. About a basic recipe, this is yet another timeless classic. I've included some additional photos and remarks and tweaks I've made along the way. Well, there is fried chicken, which when prepared well tastes amazing but requires some effort, and which, when prepared incorrectly, may be astonishingly bad. Additionally, there is roast chicken, which is deceptively complicated yet intimidates people for some reason and requires time. Then you have to carve up a chicken, which is not a huge problem but does take some work. So there was oven-fried chicken when I was a kid, which was often covered in butter, and then shake and bake appeared, giving you the seasoned breading. However, my mother examined all of the aforementioned items as well as chicken, which, thank goodness, comes with enough of its own fat, and determined that it did not require breading. She would thus purchase a quartered chicken, arrange the pieces on a baking pan, sprinkle with the color-only paprika I discussed in a previous post, and bake the dish. We must have had it virtually every week because it was one of our favorites and undoubtedly one of hers. Having this dish in your basic repertoire is actually quite helpful. When I worked in daycare, one family apparently prepared a tray of chicken every couple of days and provided baked chicken pieces virtually every day for the kids' lunches. It could not be easier. It is as tasty cold as hot, it travels well, and it reheats beautifully in a microwave. If your family like both kinds of meat, you may prepare a completely quartered chicken as Mom did, and you can even buy a whole chicken, quarter it yourself, and preserve the back for soup if you want to bother, or not. But with the large family packs of chicken pieces, it's really simple to prepare a whole chicken, such as thighs or drumsticks, and then freeze the finished product for later. I used to do that while I was performing shows, because Rich could microwave the chicken and have a great meal that was simple to prepare. I could bring the chicken and eat it cold. During Tech Week, we subsisted entirely on chicken and meatloaf. Once kids are old enough to handle the bones, drumsticks are also their favorite kids. I now cook for my parents, and they also like dark meat. I also find a thigh easy enough to handle myself in a packed meal, though I usually discard the skin first. Mom has some difficulty cutting meat off the bone, but she does enjoy picking a bone up and nibbling from it. We've taken to cutting most of the meat off and into bite-sized pieces for her, but leaving the bone with enough to gnaw. Baked chicken recipe instructions. Set the oven to 375 degrees. When I was cooking in a dorm, I put out an entire chart of temperatures and timings so I could drop my tiny dish with chicken in with anything else anyone else on the floor was baking. Or 350 degrees, or 400 degrees, if you want to bake anything else at the same time, it's extremely versatile. On a baking sheet, arrange the chicken pieces. Now that I have a fancy half-sheet pan with a rack, I use that instead of Mom, who just placed hers directly into the jelly roll pan she used for virtually everything, albeit the rack is a headache to wash. You can cook the chicken in either technique, but the rack has the benefit of letting the fat drain off, keeping the chicken from being greasy. As the fat will cook off, use a pan with a lip rather than a cookie sheet to prevent it from leaking into the oven. If you have a silicone sheet but no rack, use that instead. I've seen recipes that instruct you to season the chicken with a variety of herbs and spices, but it just remains on the skin and flavors only that. Go ahead and add salt, pepper, herbs, and spices if everyone is going to enjoy it hot out of the oven. We find that when it is refrigerated or reheated, the skin turns mushy and we typically don't eat it, so I usually don't bother. I used to apply a bit of soy sauce for the color. Likewise, people used to advise removing the skin, but a series of scientific studies showed what every cook already knew: cooking without the skin does not significantly, if at all, change the meat's fat content, but it does cause the meat to dry up. Keep the skin on while cooking and decide whether or not to eat it afterward. The time will vary depending on the size of your chicken pieces, and to some extent, depending on your oven. It may take an hour to cook giant breast pieces, but just 25 minutes to cook a pan of drumsticks. Thighs typically take 30 to 40 minutes, depending on size. Your friend is an instant read thermometer. For safety, poultry should be cooked to 165 degrees in the largest portion. However, dark flesh can be more tender at 170 degrees, while white meat may start to dry out. And it's finished. I froze some, we ate some, and I still have some in the fridge. Since the chicken was on sale for a great price, I have baked chicken, slow-simmered chicken, raw chicken, and all three in the freezer, all of which are ready to use at a moment's notice. If some of the actual cooking has already been completed, it will be so much simpler to prepare dinner fast. Ingredients: thighs of chicken may be labeled fryer or broiler, may not. Instructions: the oven to 400 degrees. Put the chicken pieces in a small baking pan, preferably on a rack. Depending on the size of the pieces, bake for 30 to 45 minutes or until an instant read thermometer reads at least 165 degrees in the thickest section of the meat. Take it away and relax for 5 minutes.